to Soulful Conversations with Nadjejda. I'm Nadjejda Chapoteau. I'm an empowerment and confidence coach, spiritual teacher, and speaker. I help purpose-driven women coaches and online entrepreneurs find their message, their niche, in order to book their dream clients. And one of the things that I am so passionate about and that I work with them on is really reconnecting with and embracing their authentic self in order for them to share themselves through their message boldly with the world to make an impact. I am so excited about my guest today, Siobhan McAuley. She is a spiritual strategist. She helps people make sense of the obstacles and challenges they face. She teaches them how to give their lives meaning by understanding the gifts they've been asked to claim, which are hidden in their dreams and desires. I love that. Thank you. Welcome, Siobhan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me, Siobhan, I know for you, you really are about helping people understand that there is, there's magic and miracles in every, available to them in every moment. Is that something that you always knew? Was that always your experience and your perspective of life?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
It was definitely something I came to later in life.
Okay.
I had to learn, basically.
Wow. And I'm curious, so do you mind sharing with us, how did you get to that place? What was that journey like?
Well, I think I had what I would call sort of glimpses of those magic and miracles, but they seem to happen only at certain times in my life, and they seem to coincide with what I thought at the time were sort of periods of time when I was traveling or exploring. There were times when there were very few limitations and not a lot of structure in my life. Like sailing across the Gulf of Mexico or traveling to go live in a new place. Like there were these snippets that sometimes lasted for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. There was even periods of time for a few years that it kind of felt like things just flowed effortlessly and easily in my life. But I didn't realize that that was actually something that was available all the time. And I kept kind of questioning and wondering, well, why was it that things were so effortlessly and easy for me at that time in my life, and then they're not anymore? It wasn't until I was diagnosed with cancer and ended up having a lot of complications in my treatment process. My treatment and recovery ended up being about 4 times longer than what had originally been anticipated. And coming out of that, I was so like beaten down and also kind of like shell shocked, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, from everything I'd gone through, that I was just like, what just happened? Like, why did that just happen? And I have this opportunity to live my life in a different way now because, I was very ill at death's door. So it felt like there was a real gift or blessing that was there. And it was like, okay, I had to surrender everything and be like, I don't know how to get through this. So whoever, whatever, if you want me to stay alive on this earth, you're going to have to figure out how to get us through this, And so coming out of it, I felt like, okay, now I need to figure this out. I need to figure out, like, how do I harness that power or potential all the time? And it was a result of that I made a decision to really move towards what I wanted in my life, which was guided by these sort of 3 pillars, which were, I wanted to feel joyful, I wanted my life to be easy, and I wanted to have an abundance of everything that I desired in my life. Yeah. And I really use those 3, I call them power words. I use those 3 words to sort of shape every experience, every decision I made. I use them as like a container, a sacred container, basically, for my life. And so my relationships had to be defined by those words. My business had to be defined by that. The way I experienced being in my body, even though it was still wounded and healing, I had to choose that for myself. And I ended up having this very kind of miraculous and sensational money experience where I went from being broke to earning $20,000 a month and doing that in relatively short period of time. I think it took me about 9 months to be doing that consistently. And so at that point, I was really like, okay, there's something going on here. And this is way more powerful than anything I'd experienced in the past. But it felt like I had more control, I guess, or I was more of an active participant in creating what was happening, as opposed to sort of accidentally falling into those experiences of what I now call grace. You know, in the past, I feel like I kind of fell into them by accident, but this was very much a conscious choice. And I felt like I was an active co-creator of the process. And that's really what got me onto that path, and basically has changed my life as a result of that and the work that I do with the clients that I work with.
Yeah, well, isn't that something how the stuff that we go through and how we actually get ourselves out of, like overcome and learn is what we end up helping other people with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for you, as you were going through this and really getting this, did you experience any type of resistance?
Yeah. Initially, not so much. And I think,
okay.
I shouldn't actually say that. I think initially the way I was experiencing resistance was the universe was guiding me. It's always guiding us, but it was guiding me to move on a different path. And I was resisting it. And that's how I ended up with cancer. And that's why I ended up having an experience of numerous complications that, made the situation much more life-threatening and long-lasting than it should have been. So I feel like I was experiencing that resistance, and the resistance became the catalyst for me to actually move into this portion of my life that was definitely marked by those three, sacred words of joy, ease, and abundance. And then the thing though was that I was really wanting to experience my life with my partner, John, in Tennessee. And at the time I was living in Toronto, and money was the big reason why we were living separately. And there was all kinds of stories going on about why I can't be joyful, why I can't have a life of ease and abundance, whatever. And so
I love those few words.
Well, and so the ultimate goal was really for me to have my life with John in Tennessee. So I went from lying on a couch on welfare, still like recovering, unable to even like walk to the corner grocery store kind of thing, like very sick, to 1 year later living in Tennessee with a work permit, legal to live and work here, making $20,000 a month. So things radically changed in a very short period of time. But the minute I got here, the resistance started again.
Okay.
I spent about 2 years in the resistance period once I was here.
Yes.
And I feel like resistance gets a bad rap. I mean, it's definitely something we have to be very aware of, but the resistance is what helps to define us, right? It shapes us and it molds us and it polishes us like a stone or a piece of wood that's rough. If we want it to be smooth to the touch, if we want it to be its most sort of exceptional quality, its most radiant or brilliant nature, then we all have to let ourselves be polished basically by the resistance.
Yeah. So would you say in a way like resistance actually builds our strength, gives us courage?
Yeah, it's a little bit like, when you're building strength in your body, you've got to exercise the muscle and almost tear it so it can repair itself. And I think our resistance, it really, it wears us down, and resistance takes on all different forms. Some are more easy to work with than others, I really think of it like sandpaper. You have your really rough, coarse grit sandpaper, which is like a 60 grit. And then you've got your very fine, almost like pebble sand soft 320 grit sandpaper. And so you use that rough sandpaper when the wood is very rough and you want to just kind of loosen off any of the dirt that's on the surface. But when you're doing your fine polishing work before you're going to like shellac something, you really need the very fine, gentle resistance. And so there's grades or variations of resistance that we're going to experience depending on what it is that's trying to be expressed through us. What is it that needs to be made known? So if you take a tree down in the forest and you do a rough carving with a chainsaw, you're going to use that really rough sandpaper first just to kind of smooth off all the excess. But when you're getting down to really shaping this work of art, you've already moved up. You've gone through all those levels of resistance to get that very fine polish so that you can see all the detail and the depth that's there.
Totally.
Can you tell I used to be a boat builder?
Totally, definitely.
Your people are probably going, what's all this sandpaper analogy stuff?
I know, and actually, I know what you're talking about because my dad would use it and I would hear people talking about it. So somebody's like, wait, so totally get it. You use the sandpaper, totally. So when you're going back to what we talked about, how there's magic, yeah. And, using your own words, miracle in every moment. Would you say basically, how they say life is happening for you? Yes. And not to you? How would you, if, with your clients or even like anybody from my audience who's not, they're not getting it, could you give, for you, what would you give them as a tool or as a tip that would help them maybe be more open to it?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to understand is that our dreams and our desires are the greatest spiritual gifts that are waiting for us to claim them, but they're hidden, they're embedded in the obstacles and the challenges in our life. And so the way that the universe is continuously working for our benefit is by providing those obstacles and challenges for us. So like if I had not gone through cancer, I never would have known that there was a possibility for me to have an online business, doing what I love doing, working with more people, working in a much larger capacity. Like I wouldn't have found that path. And in many ways, my experience is what allowed me to do the work that I do, because so many people really resonated with my story, both in terms of the money transformation, but also the healing that happened, right? And the mindset shifts that had to happen. And I really feel like on the planet, human consciousness is accelerating rapidly and everything is being amplified. Just in the last 2 to 3 years, like that question you asked, did I always know that there was magical miracles every day? No, I absolutely did not know that. And the periods of time in my life, it was like there were years in between those periods of when I felt like I was having that experience of grace where I could actually access those magic and miracles. Now, though, it's like, even just in the last 3 years, it's everyday common language. If you're in the online space, it's hard not to recognize that that's happening. Even if you're not experiencing it momentarily, it's just permeating our consciousness all across the planet. And so I feel like in a way, the universe is not just guiding me or guiding you, it's guiding all of humanity in a particular direction. And it's this direction of claiming our truth, claiming our gifts, making what's unknown in us and sharing it with the world, and moving away from this constant false belief that if I just get the right partner, if I just lose 10 pounds, if I just get the right job, the right house, the right job, have that baby, whatever it is, then everything is going to be fine. And this is a complete misnomer. Like, unless we train ourselves to become process oriented and recognize that this birthing, this becoming is continuous, it never ends.
Yes.
The moment we experience some dream or desire coming into manifestation, another one is already on its way to us. And so we have to become active participants by being receptive and willing to receive the dreams and desires that the universe is giving us. So the big tip I would say is honor your dreams and desires and show them respect by taking action on them.
Yes, totally get that. And it's, what, as you were talking, it got me thinking about how, we have the full moon and these eclipse and stuff. And in some way, I know people have been saying that the stuff that's been happening to some of us are experiencing is that it's shedding light on the stuff that we need to that needs to be released. And in some way, things that we no longer want and we need to actually let it go and tolerate. So in some way, it's happening for us, like you said. So that's what I'm hearing you say in terms of the universe actually creates situations in our lives in order to kind of wake us up, shake us up, so we can really, because these things get us, one step, several steps closer to actually fulfilling our dreams and our desires.
Yeah, and the thing is, everything, we live in a matching picture universe. So whatever is happening to the planet is happening to us as individuals, and collectively it's happening to us. And so, we're feeling this deep need to live our lives from our heart center, right? To share our soul with the world. The world has a soul as well that's seeking expression, and human beings are actively mirroring that. And so this desire that we see happening more and more, it's amplifying. Human beings are waking up. They're becoming conscious. And so there's probably millions of people on the planet who have been sort of in this process, maybe for the last 10, 20, 30 years, maybe this entire lifetime. But there's others who've really been in the resistance stage. So they're kind of getting woken up with the 60 grit sandpaper right now because of the eclipse energy and everything, right? You or me, we might be working with a finer grit because we've been on this path for a while. We've been digging deep. We've been trying to figure out how to make that unknown known, and to be a willing participant in the process, the continuous process of becoming. And so the process that's moving through us is actually the process of the earth herself. She has a soul herself that is seeking expression in the world. And so when we look around and we see everything that's happening politically, environmentally, financially, economically, all of those things are a reflection of that birthing process. And all the time what we see happening is there's all kinds of fear in our culture. Fear around the economy is not doing well. Fear around the environment is devastating. Fear around that politician's going to lead us all down a really bad path. We better hang them or whatever, right? And those may well be true, but the universe is always working for our benefit. And there will never be a time when we're not being taken care of. We might transform in the way that we work in the economy. We see a totally different paradigm now economically around the globe, with women stepping into more purchasing power than they've ever had at any other time in human history. So there's all kinds of transformation that's happening. And it's you just have to decide, do you want to have 60 grit sandpaper resistant or 320 sandpaper resistant?
No, I love your sandpaper analogy. Totally. So, and let me ask you, so as you know, because, you've gone through it, maybe you even, you still, because like you said, we're always evolving. And I know you're a student of A Course in Miracles too, right?
Yes.
As you were sharing that, I'm that is totally because we seem to think, oh yeah, if I get the right partner, I have the money, I have the perfect job or whatever, I have the right house, because in some way, that is the thing. We're being, society, what are we being told to do? You go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids. It's sort of you're being told that you need to acquire all these things, and we keep seeking those things, thinking that, oh, once I get that, I'll be okay. Once I get that, I'll be okay. And like you said, no, it keeps evolving. So I'm curious, what would you say that during the times where you're either in the resistance, or you're really feeling like you're being thrown all over, especially now in these, I don't know, some people are talking about 2 weeks of this, some people are talking about the whole month of August. What would you say in terms of what would you suggest that people do that when they're feeling all of these things? What do they suggest? What are your tips to feel better, to help them in that process, in that period where things can be pretty shaky for many of us?
Well, I think it's interesting that you mentioned A Course in Miracles, because it's very clearly stated in A Course in Miracles that The only thing that's required of us is our willingness. And so like resistance is the opposite of willingness, right? So we have to really be honest with ourselves and be like, am I willing to allow myself to be guided by some unseen force? Am I willing to allow myself to be guided by what's actually in my heart instead of what's in my head? Yeah. Am I willing to accept that I could have the life that I dream of and it's okay? Right? Am I willing to accept that I could have more money than I ever imagined, more joy, more health, more opportunities, and I'm fully worthy and deserving of that? Am I willing to accept that I can continuously be creating, feeling inspired, sharing my truth with the world, and be fully supported in that? Mm-hmm. And for most of us, the answer is no, we're not willing. We might think we are intellectually, but if we're not seeing it in our lives, then we're not. There's still something, some part of us that won't let go of that. So I think in terms of like energetic times like right now, so if we know that the energy right now is moving us all towards this new state of being, a state of being where we can experience more of what we actually want effortlessly and easily, or a state of grace, essentially, then we have to, you know, it's sort of like the stop, drop, and roll rule. It's like whatever is motivating you to do what you're doing, if it doesn't feel in alignment with how you actually want to experience your life, it's not meant for you. So like I said, my words, joy, ease, and abundance were sort of my power words. And they created this container, this sacred container for everything in my life. Well, those words have had to evolve. You know, like ease is still one of my words, but now I work with flow and the word joy and the word grace. Those are words that really resonate for me as I've sort of evolved in this experience. Mm-hmm. What I say is that anything that is not within the bounds of that sacred container, it's outside of what is sacred for me. And so we really have to pay attention. Like if what I want, if what I'm praying for all the time is, God, just give me more money. Well, why do you want more money? If what you want more money for is because you think your life is going to be easier, then ease is what you really want. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, God, just send me a man. Well, what is it that you want that man for? Is that so that you can feel love? Well, love is what you want. And so like those become the pillars of our sacred container. And anytime we're not choosing to live those realities, those experiences, we're operating outside the bounds of what is sacred for us. And the thing is, we couldn't have the desire for that in our lives if it wasn't gifted to us by the universe. So the whole thing of like, when you don't have a boyfriend and what you really want is to feel loved, the whole purpose that the universe is setting up that desire in you is so that you can let go and stop resisting this belief that love is not available for you. It's available to you right now. Right now. From within. It doesn't come from out there. It comes from here first, and then you attract what you want. And the same is true for money. Like I have to feel, if my relationship with money to be easy, ease has to come within. I have to choose ease for myself first. Then money can come to me with ease.
Totally love that. And when you mentioned about the whole thing about willing to see things, you know, and you made me realize, you made me remember the lesson from A Course in Miracles that says, I am willing to see things differently.
Yes, yes. And most of the time we're not. Most of the time we're not. We're just hell bent on, nope, this is how it is.
No, this is how it is, you know, and that's why, and I think that's why that's one of the lessons for us to really have the day and really be thinking about this. So totally love this.
Well, yeah. And you know what's interesting about that, Nadjejda, is that at this time, so we have people who are conscious of this idea that if I'm willing, I will be provided for. If I'm willing, the answers will come. If I'm willing, the supply to fulfill whatever my desire is will be there for me. If I'm willing, I will be taken care of, right? But if we're over here fighting for our limitations instead of being willing, all we get is more of our limitations. So the problem become bigger and bigger. Doesn't mean that the gift isn't there. At any moment we can turn, doesn't matter how big the obstacle is, we can turn it into an opportunity to access that gift. All we have to do is choose to be willing. But we'll notice that on that path, We have to move through a lot of resistance. We will fight hard for our limitations before we'll ever surrender them, because the ego is really facing its own demise, right? Its own uselessness. It's no longer really have a job, right? So when it's going to be put out of work, it's going to fight to say, no, I need to be here. I've got work to do.
I know, totally. So tell me, what do you stand for in life, Siobhan?
I'm not sure that that's something that is static, but I think that if there was sort of one overriding thing that I don't even know that I consciously take a stand for, I think I just am, is I'm definitely a truth seeker. I feel like I'm constantly wanting to know, what is my truth? I'm constantly wanting to know, what is your truth? What is the truth of this situation? What is the truth of the world? What is the truth of the reality that we experience? And I feel that our purpose for being is to just be in relationship to our truth, and to try to honor that truth by making it known to others.
Totally. What are your thoughts on women empowerment? Like, for you, what when you think about an empowered woman, what would you say? What does that look like?
Well, I think things are really shifting rapidly. Like, I feel like every single day I wake up and the planet's accelerating even faster than the day before. And we see our sort of knee-jerk response to that is to be busy, and to try to kind of keep up with the busyness. And I think that's actually, I think that's an old habitual response that's rooted in a former consciousness that was more dominated by a masculine awareness. And so what I see happening right now on the planet is that we're moving into what I'll call a unified state of consciousness. So for, I don't even know how long it's been, but we've been living in a consciousness that is of a dual nature, where it's sort of either or, right? Man is separate from its own divinity. And we're moving to the state of like, no, we are divine beings, and we're housed in a physical body for a temporary experience. So I feel like what's happening now for women in terms of empowerment is we're really being called on an evolutionary scale, not just individually, I have to do this for myself. I have to do this for the whole human race. I have to learn how to be the woman who can and will choose to support herself financially, can and will access the unknown creative gifts that are within her and share them with the world fully, can and will give herself permission to slow down, to soak up the inspiration she needs, to be the beauty and the magic in the world that she dreams of, instead of waiting for something or someone else to do it for her, right? Yeah. I feel like that is what women and empowerment is about right now. It's not about following an old model of leadership, or an old way of making money, or an old way of being in the world in any way, shape, or form. It's about, no, I need to define it for myself. And it's not just for me that I have to do it. I have to do it for the entire human race and for every generation coming behind me, because that's what the evolutionary call for humanity is now, is for us to transform, the way that we've been seeing ourselves in relation to the deepest part of ourselves, our soul, and the soul of the world.
Totally. I love that. Yeah. And I'm curious, for you, what do you believe the world needs more of?
Love. Love, and not romantic love, but
yes,
love in its purest form, which is, love for oneself, love for one's fellow man, love for the earth, love for truth, love for beauty, love for creativity.
Totally get that. Yeah, that is so important, so important.
Well, and I feel like that's why women are being called to lead, right? Like when we look at the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the masculine really, it needs that beauty, that joy, that love, that creativity that the feminine provides. There's a very specific purpose for that feminine energy. There's a sacredness that's required, and like the soul of the earth is in need of that, right? I feel like we're very sorely in need of inspiration in the world. You know, we're really lacking in deep, soulful conversation. We're really lacking in the quietude, just the softness, the silence. It's like I feel like we're supposed to stop yelling and start just getting quiet, turning to the, you know, and it's like the people who are whispering, those are the people who are going to be heard. Those are the people who are leading.
Totally, totally. No, it's very true. And you know what it is? As you were saying that, I was even thinking how we're constantly doing things. Sometimes it's not even like the noise. It's like, it may not even be like people shouting at you, but it's like the busyness.
Yeah.
You know, and not taking time to just really be still or just be, you know, we're constantly on the go, you know, and even sometimes you're thinking that when you're scrolling through, like I'm on a social media break, but it's like when you're scrolling through social media, that's a lot of noise, you know?
Yeah.
So totally get it.
Yeah,
totally.
you're essentially entangling your energy with like, I don't know, 3.5 billion people or something. You know, so you need a cleanse from that.
Definitely. So totally. So tell me now, I want you to tell us, so this concludes the interview part. Thank you so much. I want you to tell us about, give me 1 second, hold on. Okay, yes. So tell us about your work, like where, you know, what you do, so people know where to connect with you, where they can find out about you.
Well, I've recently sort of began to shift my business model. And so the primary way that clients work with me now is in my membership community called Elevate.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is that these are women who, they're generally the people in their family, their community, their circle of friends and work that tend to elevate the conversation. They tend to sort of elevate the beauty, elevate the understanding of, you know, the meaning or purposefulness of life. And so the Elevate community is what I call a lifestyle membership community. And it's a source of inspiration that provides tools, resources, and trainings for us to elevate our consciousness, elevate our ability to make known in the world what's unknown within us. And so by working with people on a day-to-day basis in the community, we get to, you know, really soak ourselves in the process instead of constantly be looking for chasing after that result. We're just practicing being, essentially.
Totally. Great. And your info will be, I want everyone to know your info will be on there. Under the video, they'll have everywhere that they can connect with you, your website and everything. And so thank you so much, Siobhan. Do you have one last word for my audience? Like, what would you say to them? What would be your last message to them?
I think the thing that's really important for people to understand is that there is a deeper truth in every one of us that's continuously seeking an expression in the world. And that truth is constantly changing as our consciousness evolves. And so our greatest gift to the world is to just give ourselves the time and the space and the inspiration needed for us to be able to like go to that place that sometimes scares us, that place that's deep and unknown, and allow that to be brought forth and made known in the world.
Great. Thank you. I love that. That is a great message. Thank you. So thank you so much, Siobhan. Thank you for joining me today. And I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you will go and check out her social media, her website, and you'll take her up on her free offer to you so you can connect with her. Everything will be under the video like I shared. And let us know what you think. And if you enjoyed this and you don't want to miss any other episodes, feel free, below you'll see the box, subscribe to my email list. And every Thursday when I make a new a new episode available, you'll get it directly in your inbox. You'll also get weekly inspiration from me. And once you sign up, you get my free gift to you, which is my 7 questions to help you reconnect with yourself and have an aligned message in your business. Thank you so much. Love and light to everyone. Thanks again, Siobhan.